This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. Today's session is going to be brief. It is titled How to Quote Final Expense Using CSG. I'm also going to include another platform that one can use to quote final expense to their prospects. We're also going to take a brief look at underwriting and then also how to make a recommendation. So really quick, just a few disclaimers. I'm going to count to 10 in my head so that you can kind of glance over them. They're in every single one of our training videos. I'm not going to read them off anymore, so I'm going to pause for a moment and let you read them. Okay, so some tips and good practices. First and foremost, you always want to ask the prospect's date of birth. You want to ask their age. Oftentimes, they'll inadvertently make themselves 1 year older or younger, and that will influence the rate that you quote them. We find that it's a good practice to always ask for their zip code and county. Obviously, when it comes to life insurance, it's priced on the state level. But if you're working multiple products, especially on the health side for Medicare, that's priced on the county and or the zip code level. So you certainly want to get into that habit. It's just something you want to just train yourself to always ask zip code and county. Also, many zip codes fall into multiple counties across America. This will save you a lot of heartache and trouble down the road. Always ask if they're married or reside with anyone. Nowadays, the way that I ask that question is I ask them if they're single, married, divorced, or widowed. Kind of give them one of four choices, and they'll kind of give you the tip of where they're at. More importantly, this gives you an opportunity to sell a product to the other individual and understand them a little bit as well. And then also during your sale, you want to make sure that there's nobody going to block it. So if they tell you that they're married and the spouse is nowhere to be found, you want to certainly ask them whether or not that spouse is going to be part of the decision-making possibilities. So as the old saying, you don't want to pitch the one-legger. And then also, it's not always necessary to place them both husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister with the same insurance company. Sometimes it is better to separate them, and I see there's a typo, and that's generally due to either pricing or risk assessment. So they don't have to be with the same insurance company. And then finally, I find it's always important to ask. Obviously, you're going to do a risk assessment about their health and so forth, but I always find it's important to ask about their medications. And then the reason is that the RX history will paint a good picture of their health yesterday, and that should be the word today. I quickly put this together this morning. So now I'm going to bring in CSG, and
This
this is what it looks
conference will
like.
now be recorded.
So you start by signing in, and you'll have a couple of different options here. We use this for Medicare as well, and then also how to quote hospital indemnity. But since this is a thing about final expense, right here in the middle, you can click final expense. Right here on the left, you can click final expense, run quote. And then we'll do a zip code. I'll just pick my zip code. And then we'll do a male age 60. Well, let's do male age 70, assuming you're working the Medicare market as well. And this gentleman wants $15,000. Okay. And we're always going to start with level. We have some options here: graded, modified return of premium, single pay. But we always want to start with level, and we want to sort by price. So we're going to go ahead and get the quote. And we have this set to the insurance companies that our agency typically contracts with. Some will be available in your area, some won't. Some you will have a contract with, others you won't. If there's any insurance company here you see that you may want to pick up, just let us know. But if you can see here, a whole long list of stuff appears. And you got pricing, pretty much, and this is typically what you'll see. You'll see one or two kind of on the lower end, and then there'll be a big bulk of insurance companies kind of right around the same price. in this case, 103 to 110. So the next thing you want to do, now you see all these different insurance companies. And so, like I said, some of them you're going to have access to with us. Some of them you won't, not because of any other reason that we just haven't done contracting with you. It's a lot of work. So you're sitting down with the individual, male age 70, non-tobacco. He's looking for 15,000. So typically where I would start, I know that this is a hard one to get. You got to be beyond healthy for this. So I would never use this premium out of my mouth. I would say typically the range is going to be between 103.38 and it looks like we're going up to about 117. So somewhere in between there, Mr. Client, we have about 10 different insurance companies. It's going to be my job to try to find which one of these 10 are going to accept you with open arms. And the way that we do that is we have a conversation a little bit about your health, and I try and determine which of these insurance companies would be better suited to approve you. And the reason is some of them are welcoming with some conditions and others are not so welcoming. And it's my job to figure all that out. So there's really two ways you can do that. One, you can use CSG. And let's do a typical condition is diabetes on insulin. That's very common in this field, unfortunately. And if you take a look here, what happens is it opens up the insurance company and it gives you how it's written on the application. Like, for example, Americo, if the person has diabetes on insulin, their look back period is ever. So if they've ever been diagnosed with diabetes with insulin, even if they're not on it anymore, it's a yes question. So this insurance company would not be suitable. This one here, there's a look back of 2 years for uncontrolled diabetes or somebody with diabetes age 9 or younger. So this insurance company would be good. So we'll get rid of that one. This one, for whatever reason, the application didn't transpose over onto CSG. You'll find that. It happens. This particular company here, diabetes dependent on insulin, their look back period is 6 months. So that's a current. So that's out. So if you kind of catch my drift here, basically what you're doing is you're eliminating insurance companies. This one is prior to age 50. This one is not even on the application. They don't even ask about it. Okay. This one is diagnosed before age 18 or have used insulin in the past 2 years. So if they're currently on insulin, that insurance company's out. This one asks ever. So really, that's the whole concept here is that you can put in the condition, and the CSG system will tell you how it is reading on the application. Another common one is COPD. You can kind of click that like that. And it takes a little while, and it shows you here the look back period, ever. We know that's a no-go, ever, 2 years, 2 years, 3 years, so forth. So very, very important. So that's the first step that you would do. So you've identified what insurance companies you want to place the individual with. And now the next thing you want to do is you want to just double check in the specific insurance company's underwriting guide. So let's pause for a second and let me pull one of those up.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so I pulled up an underwriting guide. So one of the things you want to be cognizant about is some of them have a height and weight chart. So you want to be cognizant about that. And the topic we were talking about was diabetes. So let's see how this particular insurance company looks at diabetes. So if they were recently diagnosed in the past 12 months, this insurance company won't take it. If their blood sugar readings are greater than or equal to 200 numerous times fasting, no coverage would be offered. So this has to do with severe complications. If their A1C reading is greater than 9, and that's pretty bad. I mean, most people with diabetes, they try to keep their A1C under 7. 9 is pretty bad. They'll look at that. 10, forget it. They're not even going to offer the coverage. If they're changing medications from insulin to tablet in the last 12 months, that means if they came off of insulin, they'll offer them level coverage. But if they went on to insulin in the last 12 months, they won't, because that means your diabetes is worsening. So it becomes a little scary to the insurance company. But if this person has been on insulin at least for 12 months, it's going to be level coverage. Let's take a look on how some other things are written. Here we talked about COPD. If they're using oxygen, there's no coverage, but if they're using a nebulizer, there is, or if they're taking pills. So this insurance company will take COPD level if they're just using a nebulizer. That's very, very important in the final expense space. Another thing that comes up is angina. This one doesn't take any angina if they had an episode in the past 12 months. So what does that mean? That means they took a nitro. So these are the things you have to know as a final expense agent, that the most important thing for you to do is try to figure out where your client could be placed. This insurance company will take cancer if there's been no treatment for the last 5 years, as long as they were just taking cancer treatment prevention medications. So every single insurance company is quirky in their own way. And we do have cheat sheets in our Facebook group that'll talk about that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you a quick other website that you can use for quoting as well. So hang on one second. Okay.
This conference
So
will now be recorded.
I don't know how I came across this one, but this one is a very similar situation. There's no charge for it. I'll put in just some parameters. This one doesn't have all the insurance companies, so it's not as complicated or comprehensive as CSG is. It does have a lot of insurance companies, but the one thing that I like about using this one is other than giving you the quotes and so forth, you can quickly pull up the underwriting guide very fast, and you can kind of take a look and see. This particular insurance company doesn't list conditions, but it has knockout medications. And our topic was diabetes. And if you take a look, Humulin or Novolog, those are big diabetes medications. I don't know if it's on this list or not. But you want to, kind of look for those things. Aricept is a big knockout drug for dementia and so forth. So you can utilize this as well. I tend to use both sometimes. If I'm a little too lazy to go grab an underwriting guide, we have it stored digitally. Sometimes it's just quicker for me to do this. But I certainly recommend CSG. CSG has every single carrier that you can think of, because when you unclick my companies, it shows you what the whole landscape looks like. Okay, so if you're in a competing situation, then you certainly would want to know who your competition is, and you can kind of see how they're pricing out as well. But I would encourage everyone to reach out to me if you're working with us and you have contracts with us. If you do not have access to CSG, I would encourage you to get access to it. This is how you run quotes. You can do this on your mobile device. You can do this on a desktop. It's good to show clients. You can pick one or two different options for them, and you can send them a nice little deliverable. Not that I would, but you can. It takes a second or two to pull up. And kind of gives you all the quotes. So if somebody's like, well, how do I know you're giving me the best deal? You can send them this really quick and say, well, all right, here, look, I'm recommending Liberty Bankers Life, or I'm recommending a surety. And a surety falls on the lower end of the spectrum. The proof is in the pudding. So things like that. This is branded because multiple agents do use it, and it is branded for our Medicare lines. So these things won't change, but here's their basic information and so forth. So that's all we got. What are the next steps? Let me pull up my PowerPoint. And the next steps are, if you are part of our network, reach out to me for the username and the login. And I want you folks to continuously use this when you're in the field or you're on the phone. You should never have to reach out to anyone for a quote if you have access to CSG. You have everything at your fingertips always. If you're not in our network, perhaps we should entertain a call to see if we're a good fit for you. We like to think of ourselves. I got to take that out. I showed that to my wife, and she thought it was silly, but we like to think of ourselves as the Malbec of wines. And then if there are any carriers that you have seen in this training that you would like to learn more about, and you want to see if they fit into your product portfolio, because some of these insurance companies are phone friendly, other ones are not, please let us know. And then that's how you can email me at nationcareservices@gmail.com. You can call or text 561-276-3280. And that is my name, Joseph Tritola. So I'm going to just keep this on for a minute or two, and thanks for chiming in.